Israel suffered one of their deadliest days since the start of the war, and Hamas released more combat footage in the past 24 hours than they have in quite a while. So we'll run through that. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 8 a.m. Central on Sunday, November 19th, 2023. Overnight, Israel announced the names and showed the pictures of 10 of their soldiers that they say were killed during combat operations. That brings the total count of Israeli service members killed during this war to 61. In terms of Palestinian casualties, the Gaza Health Ministry has not updated their casualty statistics over the past day. Now, shifting to the ground operation, looking at a map from War Mapper here, the primary Israeli focus is still up north, but conditions have started to be set for a larger ground incursion to the south. Now, while it's somewhat been presented like Shifa Hospital in Gaza City was it, that was the end-all be-all of the operation, that's just one small part of the overall operation in Gaza City. So there's still a lot of tough, just looking at the map here, you can see there's still a lot of area to be cleared, a lot of house-to-house fighting yet to occur. During the course of those operations, Israel says they're able to identify and destroy 35 tunnel shafts, uncovered 7 rocket launchers, multiple weapons and ammunition depots, adding that they eliminated multiple terrorists. Now, one of those that was eliminated over the past couple days was Ahmed Bar, the acting speaker of the Palestinian Legislative Council and former speaker of the Hamas parliament. His death was announced on Hamas channels, saying he was killed during an Israeli airstrike. If true, which seems like it is, he would be the senior most Hamas member so far killed during this war. Now, Hamas released a handful of videos over the past 24 hours showing combat operations with Israeli forces. The first one here, they say, was 3 martyrdom fighters assaulting the Rentisi hospital. I'm coming back to that term in a second here. Now, the Rentisi hospital is the location where a couple days ago, the Israeli defense spokesperson filmed a video saying this is where they think hostages had been held. That was the one with the calendar. Remember the calendar that was in Arabic, and they said it was a guard roster, that whole debacle. Anyways, in this video where you see these 3 fighters just charging directly into the Israeli position, there's a detonation from an RPG that's fired, but then there's another explosion just off screen, and it's not exactly clear where that comes from. Now, there is some speculation based off a couple things here. One, they call those martyrdom fighters. They are charging directly into an Israeli-held building, something that we haven't seen a lot of so far during the ground operation. And during past clearance operations across Gaza, Israel has uncovered multiple suicide vests. Now, this is a tactic Hamas has used in the past. Over the past couple of years, they have said publicly, and their actions have shown that they've moved away from this tactic, but I wouldn't write it off entirely. So it's possible, still lots of confirmation to come, but it's possible that the first suicide bombing was captured here on film. The end of this video also shows some captured Israeli equipment, the type of things that you would not be able to get unless the soldier was killed, or at the very least captured. So Hamas showed some body armor, dog tags, night vision devices, and things like that. Another video here shows multiple engagements between Hamas fighters and Israeli armored vehicles and tanks all across Gaza, some at very, very close range. So every clip here that Hamas shows does result in a detonation, but it's hard to tell if what we're seeing is the active protection system working as planned or if they actually achieve a successful hit on the vehicle. Now, in terms of proof, evidence of these destroyed Israeli vehicles, it's expected that after somebody fires at a tank, they're going to get out of the line of fire as quickly as possible. Somebody who stands around to wait to see the effects of their RPG or ATGM launch isn't going to be there a whole lot longer, especially at some of the ranges where Hamas is engaging Israeli targets. However, I would expect to see, at this point, more footage of tanks that were burned out or being towed away. If Hamas is able to get within 10, 15, 20 meters to engage Israeli forces at some points, you got to believe that they're able to capture some videos and pictures from a further distance away showing some of those burned out vehicles. Now, I'm certain at this point that Israel has lost some vehicles in Gaza, but the claim that Hamas puts out between 10 and 30 damaged or destroyed a day, I think is likely exaggerated. Now, the last video we'll run through here was Hamas showing a drone being launched to target Israeli forces. So there were a lot of these, closer to loitering munitions than what we might think of as drones used in the opening days of the war. But there has been a pretty significant drop-off as of late. There's still a lot of rocket launches, still a lot of mortar attacks, not as many drone attacks as of late. And if you remember a couple weeks ago, there was a video that came out, Hamas released, of flying a quadcopter over Israeli infantry forces out in the open, dropping a grenade and causing casualties. Only saw one of those videos. Now, we have to recognize that we're not going to get anywhere near all of the footage that's actually coming out of a war zone, not by a long shot. But it does seem like, based off what we've seen, or maybe more appropriately, what we have not seen, that Israel has done a pretty decent job of mitigating the Hamas drone threat so far. So that grenade video that we saw early on, just right after Israeli forces moved into Gaza, it made it seem like this war is going to be a repeat of Ukraine-Russia in the sense that every day, multiple drone videos, grenades falling out of the sky left and right, and that just hasn't been the case. At this point, I've seen that one video. Could have missed some, but expected a lot more, especially after that first one came out. Now, yesterday we reported on a strike at the Fakhoora school in northern Gaza. The casualty count there has not really been updated yet. The Palestinian Ministry of Health says that at least 50 people were killed, while an Al Jazeera reporter is saying that it's almost 200 and still expected to rise. Now, a couple notes on this event that I think is probably going to get messy in the days going forward. School was not in session. So the calling this a school was not suggesting that the children were sitting at their desks learning. That's not happening really anywhere in Gaza at this point. More that this school facility was being used as a shelter for quite a few Palestinians who had to evacuate their homes. Now, there's really not much information, at all, coming out around this strike from either side. So Hamas said that it was an Israeli strike. If that's the case, you would expect it to produce shrapnel, a tail fin, or something to show that it was definitely an Israeli munition. The IDF, on the other hand, hasn't really said anything at all, other than that the incident is currently under review. Now, as a reminder, when the hospital courtyard was struck a few weeks ago, we quickly had competing claims about if it was a deliberate Israeli strike or a failed Hamas rocket. The back and forth to that degree hasn't happened here, at least, not as of yet. Then overnight, the IDF said that they conducted a raid into the West Bank, which are near continuous at this point. It's almost every single day there's an Israeli raid somewhere in the West Bank. They say that 38 Palestinians were arrested across the West Bank, including 20 in Jenin. They say the multiple raids across a handful of locations resulted in direct fire engagements with Palestinian gunmen, and that 2 of those gunmen were killed with no Israeli casualties. Then during subsequent searches, Israel says that they recovered explosive devices near a mosque, as well as several firearms. Then rumors came out yesterday that the U.S. was close to brokering a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel, but quickly, as soon as that kind of hit the news, the United States and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out to say that nothing is set. So the tentative deal, the kind of rumor that's out there, is that Hamas would release the Israeli women and children that they are holding hostage in exchange for a 5-day pause to hostilities. Now, as of this recording, nothing has yet been reached, just to confirm that. This comes at a time where there's increased international pressure for a ceasefire and increased domestic pressure inside of Israel for Netanyahu to do something to bring these hostages home. Yesterday we reported about the 30,000 or so that marched from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to protest Netanyahu, in a sense, and say, do something at all costs. Come up with a plan. Present us with what you're doing. We need to get those hostages home. So, it's possible that something like that is, at the very least, in the works. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos loaded about 1 hour before they go live on YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.